Hey guys, Levelcap here and welcome to This Week in Gaming, your weekly news recap on everything going on in the world of video games. This week we have info about potential open testing for Battlefield Labs, Elden Ring Nightreign had an insane launch, Call of Duty made one of its most questionable changes ever, and much more. Playtesting for Battlefield Labs may finally open up to anyone interested on June 17th. A closed playtest recently concluded over the weekend, and a message in the game's launcher suggested that an official release is pending for the 17th. This has led to speculation that EA will officially announce an open playtest at the start of Summer Games Fest on June 6th, with a June 17th start date. EA already confirmed that the game will be properly revealed this summer, so this speculation makes sense. Fans of the franchise are eager to get their hands on it, and all playtests to date have been locked behind invites and strict NDAs, which obviously hasn't stopped an abundance of leaks from pouring out about said playtest, but you can only learn so much from those leaks. Hopefully we'll get some hands-on time soon and can actually show gameplay without it being removed by EA. Elden Ring Nightreign is off to a wild start this week. Within hours of launching, it racked up over 300,000 concurrent players. It also debuted as the developer's worst reviewed game on Steam ever. Players seem extremely divided, with some praising Nightreign's co-op focused gameplay and roguelike mechanics, while others feel it's just a rehash of Elden Ring's content in a less appealing package. There's complaints about how unbalanced the gameplay is if you're not playing with a coordinated group, the lack of duos matchmaking, missing voice chat, and a steep learning curve for beginners. In many ways, it seems like players feel Nightreign is less of a standalone experience and more of a mega-sized DLC for Elden Ring. Call of Duty has arguably made one of the most controversial changes in Warzone history with the launch of Season 4. Solo players are now stuck matchmaking in casual lobbies, which are primarily full of bots with only a handful of real players mixed in. The developers recently rolled out these casual matchmaking options for select playlists, but until now, all Warzone matchmaking options included a traditional PvP mode. They claim that this is being done for the sake of engagement and to keep matchmaking options manageable. However, the result is that if you enjoyed playing Warzone solo, you are now forced to play against, well, mostly bots. Players generally agree that the casual modes are great for a more relaxed experience for practicing, but they should never serve as a wholesale replacement for traditional PvP matchmaking. Hopefully the developers reconsider and bring solos back to the PvP playlist. The sequel to Cyberpunk 2077 is officially in pre-production, and while this doesn't mean much for gamers in the here and now, it's great to hear that this sci-fi RPG sequel is finally underway. There's been a lot of uncertainty about the direction the developers would take after 2077's incredibly controversial launch, which was plagued with major technical issues and missing features caused by extensive crunch and mismanagement. And this led to extensive structural changes within the company. Part of this restructuring included canceling development of 2077's multiplayer mode and additional DLCs. With the sequel finally entering pre-production, hopefully that means that the studio has finished all of their restructuring and that this time around they will give the devs the proper time and resources that they need to realize the full ambitions of this project. Now, staying with some CD Projekt Red stories, The Witcher 3 is getting a major update for its 10th anniversary. The developer has announced that official cross-platform mod support is rolling out on PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series consoles later this year. Modding for The Witcher 3 is a massive scene with hundreds of popular mods that include texture overhauls, combat reworks, alternative character appearances, reworked gameplay mechanics, new content, and more. But until now, it's all been locked to the PC version. Opening up these mods on consoles could trigger a huge resurgence of modding for the game, and even if it doesn't, console players having access to mods will still be pretty amazing. Apple is reportedly rolling out a new Games app for iOS devices. It'll serve as a hub for all App Store, App Arcade, and Mac App Store games, featuring a centralized library, editorial content like news and lists of popular titles, plus social tools such as leaderboards, achievements, messaging, and more. Apple has been making a big push in recent years to legitimize gaming on their platforms with new developer tools to make porting easier and helping publishers release desktop games like Resident Evil Evil Village on mobile. However, those efforts have seemingly failed to squash the stigma associated with mobile gaming as a hive of scummy monetization tactics in games designed for retention rather than depth or fun. The Resident Evil Village iOS release, for example, resulted in only about 2,000 units sold despite being an impressive and well-crafted port. It's possible having a unified Steam-like app for all games available across macOS and iOS devices will help sway some gamers, though it seems like macOS will probably never get the attention that the PC crowd currently does. The cost of supporting a macOS port for developers often isn't worth the extra sales that they will get from the platform, considering that the gamer base on macOS is so small. Perhaps better porting tools could help mitigate this issue, but we'll have to wait and see. Apple are also facing a hefty penalty of $570 million in the European Union if they don't comply with the regulations requiring third-party payment services on iOS's App Store in less than 30 days. Apple are appealing that ruling, but it seems like the courts have been siding against them as of late. A US judge also recently ruled that Apple must allow developers to use outside payment services in relation to the Epic versus Apple Fortnite debacle. These recent legal battles against Apple may be finally paving the way for less monopolized game distribution services out there, and I'd be very curious to see if some of this rolls over into other game distribution platforms as well. F1 25 launched this week, and it's in the running for one of the best looking racing games ever made. It builds on last year's entry to the franchise with a fully rebooted car physics system and new options for ray tracing and pathfinding. Ray tracing offers enhanced shadows, reflections, ambient occlusion, and global illumination. The path tracing option takes things even further with more realistic lighting, shading, and reflections. Unfortunately, that also comes with a massive performance penalty. At ultra settings with path tracing enabled, the game rendered at native 4K on an RTX 5090 shows the game struggling to hit 30 FPS. Perhaps even more concerning is that the game doesn't look nearly as impressive with the ray tracing and path tracing features disabled. Some reviewers were saying that if you couldn't enable these features, it actually looks worse than last year's game. That said, reviewers are generally positive, with Steam reviews praising it as an overall improvement on F1 24's gameplay. A gameplay trailer for the upcoming open-world RPG shooter MindsEye launched to some mixed reactions. The trailer showcases cinematics, gameplay, and the title's creator mode, which lets players build and share their own missions. However, it all looks very rough and unpolished. This has led to a wave of criticism, calling the game yet another fake vertical slice in the vein of the day before. That zombie survival shooter also had some dazzling pre-release trailers, but launched as a woefully incompetent early access title that lacked most, if not all, of the promised content. In fact, it was so bad that the studio was forced to refund everyone who bought the game. And while it's tough to say if a similar situation is brewing for MindsEye, it's clear the game is either still too early to be shown off, or it's overly ambitious for the resources available to the devs. Based on the trailer, it looks like the developers will deliver a bare-bones story with lots of scripted action and progression, with the bulk of the replayability coming from the game's roadblocks and Fortnite-style creation tools. Players can place buildings and enemies to create their own missions, as well as car races and other activities. We'll find out soon enough if this game has any merit to it, as it's launching on June 10th. And that wraps it up for today's episode of This Week in Gaming. If you guys enjoy these news shows, don't forget to drop me a like, subscribe for more content like it, and up next, check out my coverage of just how good you can make Grand Theft Auto 5 look with some of the modern modding tools. It's actually really incredible, and might just hold you over while you wait for GTA 6. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.